welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist. I'm here with producer Brian Gomez.
Happy Monday, you guys.
And today we have a special guest. Let me read this. Get ready for some serious star power today on Off the Couch with Dr. Greg. We're joined by the only David Chokachi. You know him from the iconic hit Baywatch and countless other roles that have brought him to the Hollywood spotlight. But today we're diving deeper into the man behind the screen, his passions, his journey, what keeps him grounded. Stay tuned for an inspiring, action-packed conversation with the unforgettable David Chokachi. David, you are off the couch with us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
You know, you just came from we were just talking just beforehand, and I'm kind of fascinated. You don't have like a really, ultra relaxing weekend behind you. You just wrapped a big movie.
Yeah, it was really, I don't think this has ever happened. And I've been doing this since 1995, working actor since 1995. And I just wrapped this movie called Married Alive that I won't go into like the whole thing because it would take up the 45 minutes we have. But it's such a beautiful story. It's a father-son story written by this guy, Bruce Reisman, who I've done 2 other movies with. And basically the plot is, real quick, when I was 17, my character, and this is not in the movie, but the backstory, so you understand where he's coming from. When he was 17, he and the love of his life, he knew he was going to marry this girl. They were in high school. They were seniors. They got pregnant and had a child. And the child was at home that day while they were at school, and they're going to graduate from school, and they're going to graduate from high school and get married and, to go on with their lives. And there is an active shooting incident in their school, and it's a mass shooting. And my character, we're in the cafeteria when these 2 guys come in with assault rifles. I try to protect this. Jenny is my girlfriend, who's the mother of my child, and I get shot like 6 times in the back, and I think she's fine, but there's blood everywhere. The quarterback of my team dies right in front of me. The school nurse, they're all just dropping, and she ends up dying. And I raised the boy by myself, and I'm a firefighter. And I never tell him really what happened that day. I never emotionally kind of break down what happened. And we cut to years later. He's about to get married, but we're only 17 years apart in age. So we're almost like brothers in a sense. But my character obviously carries around this heavy weight, and finally, there's a moment in the movie where I get to tell him what happened, and it's a beautiful moment, and the story just evolves. And like I said, Bruce Reisman wrote this script, and I've done 2 other movies with him. And it's one of those movies. I feel like this has happened maybe 3 times in my career, where the script, the location, the actors, the crew, the director, the weather, everything lines up.
Wow. And
it just makes sure, like, it just makes you tingle. Like, every day, you're just like, oh my God, this is special. Like, it was just one of those moments. And anyway, so we're going on a camping trip, and we're taking the Jeep, and the Jeep ends up slipping. The weather changes from beautiful to like kind of shitty really quickly, and so I jump out, try and hook a chain to a rock and get the Jeep off this edge. And my son's like in the car trying to because we're firefighters, we're like, all right, dude, we're not panicking here. We got this. Right. But it kind of escalates quickly into a bad situation, and I can't get the chain to a rock. And he's like, come on, Dad. And it ends up flipping with him in it. And he ends up in a riverbed pinned, like his legs are crushed. And at the start of this whole sequence, there's a couple inches of water and mud, and I try everything for a while to get the Jeep off him, and I can't, and then the story goes. But it was just awesome. So so Saturday morning, and we had rain machines for 4 nights, so we're wetsuits under our wardrobe, and when the rain machine's on, man, the water coming out of the rain machine is freezing. And this guy, and the actor, Alan Williamson, is literally under this Jeep. Mud river is flowing over him for, hours. And he was a trooper. It was just beautiful. But I literally wrapped at 4:30 in the morning, and we're celebrating and taking pictures. And then I drove home and went to bed. And this as an actor, you just want to work, and so I got lucky and started this other movie called The Black Panthers of World War II. It's about a tank division that came in and basically saved this town of Tillet, and they were amazing tank fighters because they had spent so much time training, and Pat never used them until the very end. Then they brought them up, and they were deadly with their accuracy. But my call time was 11:15, and I had been so into this character of Mac, switching gears into I'm playing a general.
Oh wow.
Who's actually pretty active in the movie and has a lot of action also, but he's also trying to coordinate these tanks against what's his name? Who do they bring in? Hitler's main dude, the tank commander. Anyway. It was just, so I got to the set and we're shooting in Topanga Canyon, and luckily we're shooting at turns out a friend of mine, the stunt coordinator's house that I've known for years. I'm like, dude, no way. And, but in the first couple takes, and I got my hair cut like this, kind of like that military, and I have the whole uniform, and I felt it, but I was it just didn't feel right, man. I was it was the strangest thing, and I felt really bad, and I felt bad for the director. And I'm like, man, you got to help me here, because I'm still in this other movie, because the other movie was so emotional in every aspect. It was an actor's dream for me. It hit everything. So, but the guy,
there are clips on your Instagram which are just incredible. It really gives you a sense of what it was like, and the rain machines and everything.
Yeah, it was intense. Yeah. And the cool thing is, because of my character, what he had witnessed at age 17 and the loss he went through,
the trauma that he
there was,
with him. Yeah.
It was pure freedom. And the director also, he let me go places. He won't use some of the footage because emotionally I went really I went deep when I'm telling the story. But he was I don't know, it's kind of you're emotional mess in that scene. So there were other takes where it's more controlled and reserved that he'll probably use. But the cool thing about that character is there is no right or wrong, and nobody can say, oh, that performance, you were over the top, or you were too angry, or you too subtle, or you're too quiet, because who can ever say they experienced a mass shooting and then how you would behave years later? You cannot do that unless you are a film critic who has survived a mass shooting. You know what I mean?
I think that this you're touching on something that's become an unfortunate part of today, which are being people who are victims of mass shootings, people who witness them, and people who are nearby them and are affected by them. But when we have trauma, we don't have trauma just in one fell swoop and then we all pick up and dust ourselves off. People carry the trauma with them for their lives. It sounds like that movie, which I'm super interested to see, Married Alive.
Yeah.
Very interested to see, because it sounds like a trauma and redemption story, but it also sounds like there might be more trauma.
Yeah. There's lots more. But it's beautiful. The ending is beautiful. You'll cry.
Oh, good.
You'll cry your eyes out.
I do like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you did, Bruce Reisman, you did Last Call in the Doghouse, where you played God. You've played iconic characters in his other movie, Because I'm Famous. What?
Gene Tunney.
Yeah, you played Gene Tunney, the boxer.
Yeah.
Who was the father? I mean, he was a world heavyweight champion and light heavyweight champion, and But did you know that he is the father of John Tunney, the senator from California, who was a senator when I was a kid, and he was kind of a big deal.
I did know that, but I didn't know that. Obviously, your relationship to the senator.
No, it's not my relationship. No, but I just lived here.
But What state? In California?
Yeah.
He was?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because I just looked up Gene Tunney because I was like, I got to know more about this boxer that you played, and I'm like, John Tunney, was that the senator?
Wow.
Not even sure enough it was. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
So yeah, they a very impressive family. The thing was about this boxer too is he wasn't just a powerhouse boxer; he was strong, but he apparently played boxing. Did boxing like a chess game. It was a mind game. He knew how to play it.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Fascinating.
It was super awesome. And he was also very interested in the arts, and he in real life hung around with a lot of theater actors and writers. Wow. And was like very almost like a Renaissance man, Wow. So it was really cool.
Impressive, man.
Yeah.
So he was. So you've played him. You played boxer. You played general. You played God in Last Goal.
Yeah.
In the Doghouse, which is a real trip.
Yeah.
You've played all these iconic characters, but can I talk about the iconic show that you were on?
Of course, man. Of course.
Baywatch, massive success. You had a quote in the After Baywatch special, which I also want to touch on, but you said it was like stepping onto a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And I was trying to imagine your experience. Baywatch was already a phenomenon when you were cast.
Oh, yeah. Oops. That's not on silent.
We're getting a call. No, it's okay. But you were already cast on the show, and that must have been really tough. So Baywatch, just to give everybody a reminder, #1 show in the world, aired on every continent except Antarctica. I have to actually look. 158 countries, 42 languages, 1.1 million viewers a week. Although I saw some people say 1 billion. Yes. Yeah. 1.1 million is nothing. You guys had over a billion. There were some that said 1.2. Whatever it was over a billion people a week when there are only 5.6 billion people in the world. 1 in 5 human beings on the planet were watching Baywatch every week.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable phenomenon.
It's and I'm not saying this I'm not bragging, but I've never seen or experienced something because I've been to some remote places on the earth, and it is that show just penetrated places you would never believe. I mean, I went to the Galapagos with my in-laws. They took us a year ago, and one of the guides had the red rescue can. I didn't say a word, right?
Those are like the buoy
the thing that we use. So because we're going on a National Geographic ship, and we're going on to going to the land like what you do every day, you go explore. And he's explaining the deal to everybody, and he's like, okay, this is Pamela. We call it Pamela. It's the rescue can. If you fall in the water, I'm going to hand you Pamela. You grab it. I'm like, no way, dude. So eventually when we get to the beach, I tell him, and they start flipping out. And there's a post on my Instagram, with the guides, and they're just like, yeah, oh my God, what? They were so psyched. Another one, 4th of July, I'm sitting next to this Russian woman, a beautiful Russian girl, and she's become a famous photographer in LA and married and has a baby. And she's like, "Are you played Cody, right?" She knew, but she didn't want to talk about it. Yeah, and I go, "Yeah,
Cody Madison."
I go, "Where are you from in Russia?" And she goes, "Siberia." And she goes,
"Wow."
She goes, "David, you don't understand that. When I'm saying Siberia, I'm talking about the most remote town you could imagine. Picture that, and in that town we're watching Baywatch." Wow. And I'm like, it's a trip, right? A show can penetrate, have that reach. I don't know if there's another movie or TV show in the world that has ever done that or will do that.
That's what Brian and I were talking just before, and I said I don't think there's going to be another show that could possibly do that. Now media is so fragmented. Yes. But back then it was centralized, and Baywatch just took it to a whole different level.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
But you were cast, I mean, my goodness, you couldn't have been cast in a more high-pressure situation. The show's already a massive hit.
Yeah.
Pamela Anderson is already on the show, and they cast you as her boyfriend?
Well, I had to, no, not initially. It was really interesting. So when I got the job, they said, I was like, oh my God, I got it. After all, like 5 auditions, a swim test, and blah, blah, blah. But the interesting thing is, here, let me back up a little. When I walked in the door for the very first audition, the 2 casting directors go, I didn't say a word. They go, are you allowed to swear on the show? Or
Yeah,
not?
go.
Okay.
Let's do it.
They just go, they were tired, and they were just like, their heads were down. And I walk in the door, I didn't say a word, and they were like, holy shit, you're the guy.
Wow.
You are the guy. I hope you can act. And I was like, oh my God. And then I just went on, I had been, studying and working really hard in an acting class and also privately with a coach. And then, so I got the job and they go, you sign a 5-year deal. And so I'm celebrating, and then they go, but we're only guaranteeing you like 7 episodes out of 22 in your first season. But if we like you in the first 7 or the first couple, you have the potential to do 22. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is like probation. You got to like prove yourself. But I was, I was definitely, the first day I was like, wow, this is, it was frightening but also exhilarating. I mean, I was green. The first scene I did was like, I can't even watch it now, it's so bad. But
what was the first scene? Was that when you're introduced to Yasmin Bleeth?
Exactly.
And,
in the gym,
and Pamela Anderson?
It's horrible. Don't ever
well, I mean, it's like, hey, I'm meeting you guys.
But I and exactly like you said, I'm stepping onto something that is a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
And but luckily I was prepared. I also had a background. I grew up on the East Coast in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I grew up on the ocean. My mom was a huge sailor, so we started sailing at age 5, like literally racing sailboats. I took that to a pretty far level. I ended up becoming the head sailing instructor at our yacht club. I went to the Junior Olympics in windsurf racing.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, like triangle racing, and also I competed in another boat called 420s, which are these 2-man boats with a spinnaker and a trapeze, which are really fast. So I knew how to drive boats. I knew how to sail boats. I was a certified scuba diver. I was on a swim team. So when I got on the show and they started seeing me use my skills, like they're like, hey, can you drive the boat? Can you drive the jet ski? Because when you drive a jet ski and you're shooting a scene and the camera's right where he is, and you got to come in and spin the ski and then say your line, like not many people can do that without crashing.
That is tough.
Like it's a very delicate, unless you've done hours. But I had already had those skills, so they were like, oh my God, this kid can do it all. Like, so all of a sudden I went from like 7, I think I ended up doing either 19 or 20 out of 22 episodes my first year. Because, they wouldn't let certain people drive. Like we have the Scarab, the big speedboats. And, a lot of times they wanted that thing to come in really fast to like Venice Pier and then turn and kind of like almost spray the pier and then stop and someone dives off. And it was only like myself and Mike Newman who were allowed
on the show.
Who were allowed to actually do those scenes. And so I saw how to make it work. I also was like, I saw like the idea of fitness. Like I came in fit, and I even got more fit because I was like, the more fit you were, even as a male, the more your fan base, the bigger the fan base, the more attention the writers would pay to you. They were just, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I would work all day at the beach, and I would go to the gym, and then I would go work with my acting coach, and then I'd go to bed, and I would just do it over and over and over. And it just worked. It propelled my character forward so much so that they gave me the option. They go, David, who do you want as your girlfriend on the show, Yasmin or Pamela? And I was like, wow. Oh my God. Yasmin was awesome. Like we had such a good relationship, but I also had like this amazing relationship with Pam. Like, her and I just had this weird self-deprecating humor thing. Like we did. And so of course I was like, damn, like, I'm not stupid. And we had so much fun in our scenes. And the whole experience, and then reliving it again, doing the documentary was, seeing a bunch of the cast members who decided to participate was really fun. And kind of, it was kind of like cementing the legacy.
I love that documentary, by the way.
You did?
After Baywatch,
Awesome.
I was actually exceptionally good. I was kind of riveted by it because I didn't appreciate when Baywatch was on what a cultural phenomenon it was. I was just going through my life, and this is a TV show. I knew the actors though, and didn't even watch. I was in grad school. I was so busy I couldn't watch television.
Right.
But I knew Baywatch.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew these actors. Somehow they penetrated my skull.
Yeah.
And I knew, of course, and you're sort of iconic raising from the pool in the beginning.
With the Speedo.
With the Speedo, which, I told a trainer at the gym, I hope you don't mind me saying,
No,
a guy, and he goes, I said, I'm interviewing somebody from Baywatch tomorrow. And he said, oh my God, is it David Chokachi? And I said, yeah. He goes, oh, that film of him rising up from the pool, he goes, that was in my spank bank for a long time.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that was me just getting out of the pool. Like, I was strong enough to push it. It's kind of hard to push up out of the pool without actually getting on a knee or something, to go from the water to straight up to your feet.
No, it's actually difficult to do.
It is, but
and you're the muscle activation in your shoulders.
And I was just trying to be a stud because the character was I'm like, yeah, man, I got to be this guy, And the Speedo was a Speedo, and I was just like, I'm gonna rock this, I'm gonna own this thing, And it turned out to be one of the best opening credits. It went everywhere. It got ripped there was so many commercials. There was a Bud Light commercial with a guy coming out of an ice hole, in Green Bay, doing the same thing, coming out just like me. And it was the rip off of the Baywatch thing. It was hilarious.
That, it was so iconic in your body, actually, that you really, if you don't mind me saying, probably you had the best body on the show. And that's saying a lot because everyone had a great body on that show.
Yeah.
But you really did have a really ripped, good, and they would put you front and center in all those photos. So
yeah,
I think they were using.
I just I come from an athletic background, and I grew up. My mom I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, like I said, and she was like, "You guys are not. You're never going to get in trouble because you're going to be too busy playing sports," and that's what she did. I have a younger brother, older sister. And we went from sport to sport to sport. There was never a gap. And my dad was just, he was, he was old school. He basically was he came from the Middle East.
Right.
He was 11 years older than my mom. He was a surgeon. Mm-hmm. He came to this country with no money. He came from zero. He came from dirt.
Right, from Baghdad.
From Baghdad.
But Iraq. And
he had to leave because he was... So, basically he had spoken up against Saddam and the regime. He was vocal and politically active against them and the Sons, which was honorable, but he had already been arrested once, and somehow his dad got him out, but his dad was like, they're gonna disappear you. They're going to come in the middle of the night, grab you, and we'll never see you again, and we'll never know what happened to you. And you know what happens. They take them and chop their head off and throw them in a pit. Yeah. So somehow his dad got him some money, got him on a boat, and he immigrated through Ellis Island. Amazing. And we even went to Ellis Island, looked him up, and saw his name and his signature. It was so cool. And he basically had a little bit of money, and I don't know how he managed to do it because he didn't have a lot of connections, but he ended up putting himself through medical school. He met my mom. He was doing his residency at Wellesley College in Massachusetts. Amazing. And she was a nurse in nursing school. And then he moved down to Plymouth, ended up becoming the chief of surgery at the hospital. And, he was into medicine he loved people. When his office hours were always backed up because he would talk to you for an hour and want to know about your life. He was never, that was the kind of guy he was, but he made us every weekend. It was his idea of relating to his sons was through work. So it'd be Saturday morning, and we're like, hey, we're going to the beach with our buddies. He's like, no, you're not. We have work to do.
Wow.
And in a very aggressive tone. And we're like, and we'd be so mad. Or we're like, can you just write it down so we can do it, knock it out, and go with them? No. Start here, so do this, do that. And then sometimes buddies would come over and even try and help, and then they'd be like, dude, you're never going to be out of here. We're out of here. See you later. Bye. And then about around 4 o'clock would be done. And, whatever, day was over. It was kind of like blown. And that didn't happen all the time, but that was the majority. He and my mom, they instilled like real hardcore work ethic into us.
Yes.
And, I used to, I heard this from a buddy of mine that I played football with. He was like, oh, you grew up with a silver spoon. I'm like, bullshit, dude. I grew up working my ass off. We had chickens and like geese and like eggs. So, every morning before school, whether it's snowing, raining, lightning, whatever, you got to go clean out the chickens. You got to get the eggs. You got to change the water, bring them food. We had real responsibilities, and that work ethic carried through, because I ended up becoming a carpenter before I didn't know really where I was going to go in life, but I could outwork anyone, and it just paid off, and so could my siblings.
And that work ethic carried you through Hollywood, which is really fascinating because a lot of people burn out.
Yeah.
It's so hard and the pressure's so tough.
Yeah.
But you learned a skill, which is something called frustration tolerance, which is you were basically, and I think it's one of the most important skills to teach a child, is to be able to put frustration in sort of aside, or to allow it to be and to pursue your goal. So when we have frustration tolerance, we may have a lot of frustration like you did when your friends would come over and you wanted to go play or go down to the beach, but your dad said no, and that's unfortunate, and we don't like it at the time, but the skill we learn is to be able to tolerate that frustration, which is basically like building an emotional muscle. So that emotional muscle helps get us through, so we have more emotional strength to get through.
Wow.
Yeah, so
maybe that's why I've made it to where I'm at.
I don't doubt it. Some of the most well-adjusted kids I know basically have your story, and who as adults, and some of the least well-adjusted had parents who were perhaps a little easy on them going
right.
And I'm not to say I don't think people should be harsh on their children. Please, I don't think that at all. I just think that there is a benefit to doing things like doing sports. I think in another interview I saw that you would go sailing at 6 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And in like 20 knot winds.
Yeah.
It's like 25 miles an hour. Like, just tough. That's tough to sail in.
Oh, yeah. And we'd be, at 6 in the morning, and it's like a northeaster, which is like, in Massachusetts, it's like a gnarly storm because it's just like blowing on shore, and it looks apocalyptic, basically.
Yeah.
And my mother would be like, because our house was like in this harbor, we would sail down to the race and then have to sail home. We'd get in the boat. This one time, I remember it's clear as day. It was my sister and I. Like, as soon as we got in the boat flipped right at the edge of the shore, and we're like, we're not going to this race. And my mother's like, get back in that boat and get down to that race. You are not coming home until you finish the race. And that's the way it was, man. And that's that. It was.
It's
awesome.
Tough when it had It's like when you're the kid, you're like, oh.
Yeah, but it developed it developed a skill set, like a toughness and a grit.
Yeah, grit is a good word too.
Also like my mom's side of the family is from Finland. My grandmother was. Well, some of them were born there, and then they immigrated back to Wyoming, and then went back to Finland. But sisu is a big word in Finnish. I don't know if you're familiar with that word.
No.
Okay, I have it tattooed here because it's like a word we use ever since we were kids. And sisu. So back the Finns believe they have sisu, which started when in World War II, when the Russians were about to literally penetrate Finland, and they were able to stave them off. They kept them off because they felt they have sisu, which is meaning it's a very long explanation, but it's grit, it's metal, it's tenacity, it's stoicism over a long period of time. But that period of time is a difficult period of time. It's not having stoicism when you're on a sailboat drinking a cocktail. You know what I mean? It's having stoicism and grit when things are really going bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the word is a really powerful word, and any Finnish person they're very proud of that word, and it's a cool thing. And I believe, like, you know, those combination of things I learned and grew up with, you know, they work.
Well, it's interesting because Finland is one of the happiest countries in the world. So, you know, obviously those two things go together.
Yeah.
I've always believed that, and I know some Finnish people, and I'm super impressed with them.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's
people
awesome.
who are from Finland. So yeah, I wanted to talk just a little bit about Baywatch, just to say when you first started, because there was an infamous scene when you. I guess was it when you first entered the show? What happened with Tommy Lee and Pamela?
Oh yeah. Well,
I mean, you got right in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, so Pam and I just had this, great relationship, and it was, like I said, it was more. I knew she was married. I wasn't going to mess with that. I'm not going to interfere with Tommy Lee. You know, it was more just like almost like brother and sister, and you're actors. You know, you can do that as actors. You don't have to cross the line.
Right.
But when we had kissing scenes, we kind of would go a little bit past what you're supposed to do, because you're not supposed to really use your tongue. But her and I were like, I don't know, this is kind of this is a hall pass. You want to go for it? And I'd be like, yeah, of course. And the directors, the producers, they were like, yeah, whatever. They liked it. They didn't.
It looks good.
They never stopped us. But we just had like this chemistry that was really fun, and like it was real, because like. We were we had a great connection, and she was just such a great spirit, and she also is part Finnish.
Oh,
yeah. So my mom came to the set one day and gave her like this Finnish dictionary, and it was a really cool moment. And she had like her baby. I think it was Brandon, it was the baby at the time, and but yeah. So there were multiple scenes. I mean, Baywatch was. The only thing you do is kiss someone. You know, it never goes further than that. And, you know, when we're shooting in public down at Will Rogers State Beach, you can only police tape off so much area. And that's back in the day when there was like Extra and all those TV shows.
Oh, God, yeah.
And so they're all lined up shooting footage of what we're shooting. And there was a scene where her and I are at the water's edge, and we're just like the sun is setting, and we're like holding hands and then looking each other's eyes, and then we start kissing and making out. And of course, like one of them got it, and they flipped it on air literally like that night. And Tommy Lee was at home, and the next day I come to set and I get all ready, and I'm walking down toward where the set is from the trailers, and I just hear this, you know, like it sounded like just a construction crew inside her trailer, and he was in there basically just destroying her trailer. He was so pissed off, and he called the producers, and he's like, if you write another kissing scene for Pam with David Chokachi, I'm gonna kill you, basically. You know, he just threatened the producers, the executive producers, and they're like, listen, this is Baywatch. We can't stop that. That's part of the show. She's an actor, so you guys got to figure this out. And it was just unfortunate because it put a lot of pressure on her, and I saw the pressure, how it physically affected her. And initially, our stuff was really fun, and then when he put this pressure on her, stuff started to change, and she became like. She actually didn't even want to like do these scenes. I mean, she did, but she was conflicted, and you know, we had to tell Tommy, like, he would call the crew and be like, where are you guys shooting? Oh. And the crew would go, they would lie to him. They'd be like, well, we're shooting in whatever, Marina Del Rey, and we'd be over in Santa Monica. And he'd be trying to find us. And
so he was possessive.
Yeah. And what was even more weird is a couple of months after that whole incident, we all went to dinner. It's like Pam, Tommy, myself, Yasmin, a buddy of mine, and I forget who else was there. And he couldn't have been cooler. And like Tommy and I, my buddy, were up at the bar doing shots together and hanging out, and it was like the most normal and fun, cool dude I'd like met. So it was just, I get it. He's married to the most beautiful, controversial, sought after woman in the world.
That was quite true.
So I get it. I'm sure he just kind of lost it for a minute, and we all have moments, man. So I don't fault him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a bummer because it wasn't a one-off. The pressure on her kind of. She lived with it for a while, and I just tried to like support her and be a good human being and be like, hey, I'm here for you if you need anything. And she, I just hang out with her sometimes in her trailer, and she'd be kind of freaking out, and just be there. That's it.
No, that's probably the very best reaction. The pressure on you guys was outrageous. Was it you? Somebody said, the show was like the media basically put you under a microscope and was looking for every flaw.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it just seemed very accurate.
Yeah.
Like they're just looking for everything. And poor, Pam and Tommy Lee, because of the whole sex tape thing, and they're both wildly famous before any of that happened. Yeah. It just...
and they were, that's back in the day when the paparazzi were animals.
Vicious, yeah.
I mean, they were underneath grip trucks, hanging, like, they were trying to hide under grip trucks, trying to get her, they were trying to get pictures of her.
And provoking.
Yeah, before, like, without her makeup, going from her car to the trailer, or just looking for a moment that was off, and then they would run that. But it's like, we're all human beings. You're gonna do shit. You're gonna pick your nose or your whatever. Something's gonna be off. But that's what they wanted. They wanted to see something, try and capture a moment of her or anyone doing something off color, but is normal human behavior. That just part of life, whatever. We're actors. You do stuff. You're preparing for scenes and you're whatever. So like it was strange. It was very strange, and I don't envy anybody who has that kind of life because it's claustrophobic and it's disgusting and.
No.
It doesn't look fun.
No, and you can't really, what if you're having an off night and you want to go, you're going to like the movies. Well, I guess you can't go to the movies, but you might go to a show or something. Once I sat next to Pam at a little show. She was perfectly lovely, chatty, but the thing is she can't like have an off night. Well, I mean, she could, but then other people are going to talk about it like I just did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, or if you're a guy and you're in a bad mood and they're just up in your face and you snap, like, I don't know, I would snap,
Of course.
Like,
what
it's
the
just like, come on, man.
Crazy.
Like, and they in the documentary they show, I don't know, who is it, like, was it
Tommy
Tobey
Lee.
Maguire?
Oh.
When he's getting in his car and he's like, will you just get the fuck out of my way?
Oh, yeah.
He's just trying to leave. And they're in.
That was in the Viper Club.
Yeah, the Viper Room.
Yeah, Viper Room. Yes.
We were so after that same night.
Wow.
That we had dinner with Pam and Tommy. We went to the Viper Room after, and it was the same night that whole incident happened. Like we came out the doors, and it was like all the cameras, and I was like, I'm going that way. I exited, and then they just got got swarmed, and then Tommy was like trying to like create space and ended up pushing that guy, and the guy I think broke his hip or whatever. But I mean, they were savages, and then the stuff they were saying to her, it's like
they were picking on her motherhood or something. Yeah, it was really cruel.
It's really cruel, and I don't know what you think. Or how is a human supposed to react, or how's a male or a husband who's a protector going to react? I mean, I don't tolerate that stuff, so it wouldn't have been good.
No, I think it's good for us to look at that and say, there but for the grace of God, type of thing. And this, he was pushed to the limit. People knew they were playing with fire. They were throwing sparks.
Yeah.
But that takes me to like, you've had this amazing career and you had this life, but you also then now have a wife, child, 13 years old.
She just turned 13, Britt.
Brit.
B-R-I-T, yep.
And it's so wonderful because in the documentary, they show you with her on the beach.
Yeah.
And in the water.
Yeah. She, ever since she was born, my dream was like, I cannot wait for the moment to have her on the front of my surfboard. And take her surfing. And so even when she was little, I would just hold her on the board. And then by I think age 3, we got one of those life jackets where it's got a handle on the grab handle and it goes through her legs. And I stand up surf, which some people don't understand. But anyway, so she would just grab like the back of she would just go like this and grab my shorts, and that's how she would hold on.
Oh, wow.
Like I would pop her up and like would start like I'd start on my knees and she'd be in front of me, and we would just catch waves like that. I have like a thing on YouTube you should check out. It's like the Beach Boys song, and it's us just riding waves. And that's how we started. And I was like, when the first time we caught it like a wave, I was like, just like, oh my God, this is so wild. This is something I've manifested and wanted, and it's happening, and it was like beautiful.
How do you stay so grounded? Because you also had a very major injury that happened that I'm really curious about.
Yeah,
that it really it goes beyond. I mean, talk about Sisu. You really had to go through.
Oh God, yeah,
a very difficult circumstance.
Before I go there, but I just want to say, like, my daughter also, this is also very trippy.
Yeah.
So we always rent a place up on Point Doom year round, and just during the summers and every weekend, that would be our thing. Like,
I recognize that was the beach that you guys were at.
Yeah. So, she got into, I was like, you got to get into the junior lifeguard program. And it's run by Greg Bonan, who was the creator of Baywatch.
Oh, yes.
So when she did her swim test, Greg was the one who was doing her time. Like you have to, I forget, it's 50 yards in a minute 50 at age 9, and you have to pass it. But if you pass it, you're in the system for good. Like you can stay in and so last year she finished her 4th year. But the first time I dropped her off, I see Greg. And then it's like she's like training now to become a junior or a lifeguard for real.
Oh, she is.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I'm like played one on TV, and then there's Greg who created Baywatch, but he's still an active lifeguard in real life. And it was like art imitating life, and just like this crazy moment. And she's like one of the strongest paddlers, one of the strongest runners. Like even like
wow,
she can hang with the boys paddling. She's good, and her surfing ability, everything is improved because of her. Junior lifeguarding is real. Like it's
no, it really is.
It's
June. It's hardcore. I grew up in Huntington Beach.
Okay, yeah. So you see it, but it was kind of like the Baywatch moment when I'm talking about fluffing in the Speedo, because it's June, it's 8 a.m, and they're like, all right, buoy swim. And it's foggy and it's freezing, and they don't mess around, and the kids do it. And as a dad, I was like, "There's one thing you have to do, and as long as I'm alive, is you have to stay in this program, like, because there's no better job than being. If you stay in California and you go to college here, like, there's no better job. Like these guys, I watch them what they have to do. When it comes time to rescue, it's real. But other than that, it's like show up at your tower, stretch, check the water, stretch out a little more, go for a run, come back, eat a little food, go for a swim. Mm-hmm. They train. They basically get all their training done while they're doing the thing. But it's the community of like LA County lifeguards, because you see like all the dudes will drive up and they're just always laughing and always. It's a beautiful thing, and you can make. At age 16, you can become a state lifeguard, and you can make like up to $40,000 a year. And then at 18, you become a county lifeguard, and you can make up to like $80,000 a year if you're taking all these jobs. Like, so it's not about the money, but for kids, I mean, I grew up back east where there were jobs. You could mow lawns, you could work construction, but I don't see any kids working jobs in the summer. I'm like, what are they learning? They're not learning how to work at all. And that's a big problem.
Oh, I agree. That also builds frustration. Till I worked since I was 14. I kept working constantly. But I did not work as a lifeguard. But my 2 nephews who live in Point Dume both became lifeguards. They were mentored by Greg Bonin.
Come on.
Yeah.
Can you say their names or no?
Yeah, Tristan and Cole Sturgeon. Yeah.
I know
the Sturgeons.
them. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What?
Yeah. They just
Do they still live on Point Dume?
Yeah, they do. I could say the street, but yeah.
Yeah, Tell me after. Tell me after, because that's
sure my sister wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah, no. I probably know your sister.
You might, yeah.
I mean, it's very small.
It's small, I know.
I mean, it's the coolest place on the
That's why I recognize the beach. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so cool. Anyway, that I just am like, you have to stay in this program. And this year, at the beginning of the year,
and they love it. Yeah, it is extremely impressive. I'm very impressed with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked at like Disneyland.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was cool, but
that was kind of probably cool.
But not the same. The lifeguards are the stars.
Yeah, to develop a skill set where, and then we'll go on to the next question.
Yeah,
I was surfing with this guy that I know this summer, and we were talking about this junior lifeguard program. And he starts telling me the story, and he's an okay surfer, pretty good, and a good swimmer. And they were in Hawaii on vacation, and he was swimming, and he got caught in a serious rip, and he just tried to stay calm, and then all of a sudden he started panicking, and he kept getting pulled out, and he was fighting it, and his daughter, who had gone through the program and was actually like an active lifeguard, saw her dad basically like drowning, grabbed a surfboard, paddled all the way over to him, pulled him on the board, dragged him to shore, and saved his life. And he's like, I probably would have drowned if she had not been in that program.
Wow.
And that's powerful.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful.
I'm like telling my daughter Britt, I'm like, this is a skill set you'll have the rest of your life. You can save your own life or more, and also you can save someone else's life.
Save someone else's life, and it may be another day to her, like, I pulled this guy out of the water, but that may have an impact on him or her for the rest of their lives.
Oh my God, yeah. It's no joke, man.
So, it's incredible. So it's very valuable work, and good for you.
Yeah.
And that definitely builds frustration tolerance, being a lifeguard. I don't know. That to me is a tough job, to just stand there all day, and then constantly be vigilant looking for things, and then having to like run out in the water or scream at people, blah, blah, blah. Kids, they'd always yell at us.
Yeah.
But they're really quite impressive. Tell me though about, because you had the injury while filming that really sidelined you in a pretty dramatic way.
Yeah, so this was August of 21. A buddy of mine was like, "Hey, I think it was a Lifetime movie, but it was in Connecticut, and he's a great guy, and it was the movie was taking place right on the ocean.
Right.
I forget the town, but it was like, and I was just playing a cop. It was pretty simple, and I was like, and we were all going back east anyway, but I was kind of supposed to stay with my family and go to Montauk and do this little trip with them. My wife had some work thing. And I kind of was like, but I want to work. I want to go do this. So it was a weird divergence in life, like where like sliding doors, where I was kind of supposed to stay with them and go on that trip, but instead I was, I kind of was like, but this is, I'll bang this. It's like 7 days, and I'll come meet you guys. And anyway, the entire script, all I do is talk. It's, and then there's about 3/8 of a page of action where I chase a guy down a hallway in a hospital, who's like the bad guy. And it was like 1 a.m. It was really humid, and I'm in these clumsy like military boots and a cop uniform. And it was like the last shot of the night. I just got to come up, hit a mark, and then I see him, and I yell at him to stop, and he doesn't stop. And I go to sprint, and we, when when I do things, I can't do anything half-assed, so I go to sprint, and we do it once, and it's fine. Nothing happens. Perfect. Everybody's like, "We got it. Should we go home? Let's go home." Everybody's beat, and then someone, and it wasn't the director or the DP. Someone's like, "I don't know. We're set up for it. Let's go one more time." And then that time, like as soon as I went to sprint, it just went. It shredded. Like I knew it because I had torn my left one, like and years ago. So
Wow.
I knew exactly what happened, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe like when you tear your Achilles and rupture it. It's a disgusting feeling. And it's just like breaking a bone. I've broken my femur in 8th grade. I broke my femur real quick. And back then they don't put a rod in a cast and send you home. I go to the hospital, and the guy's like, "You're gonna be here for a while." I'm like, "Oh, what? A couple of days?" He's like, "No, we're gonna put you in traction." I was in the hospital for 2.5 months.
Oh my God.
They drill a hole through your tibia. They hammer a pin through, hook you to weights, and you're in a bed on your ass and back for 2.5 months. So your leg doesn't get shorter than the other one. It'll grow while it heals. And like, you know, you're shitting in a bedpan, and you're stuck in this, like you're stuck. You can't roll over. And so I've been through some stuff, but
that's a sisu developing experience as well.
That started building some sisu for sure, man. Because when the lights go out at night and you're there, you know, for a month, and I was in a ward, and there's like 3 others with similar injuries, but they all started leaving.
Were they kids too?
Yeah, they were kids, and they were leaving. Like they had been there a little bit before me, and so I was like the last one. And then I started freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I was crying and be like, why am I still here? I'm the only one, you know. But like the nurses were amazing, and they're like, you know, they're just. But it was hard.
Wow.
Yeah. 2.5 months in a hospital. I mean, at age 13 or 14.
So did that help you in the new injury that you had?
I don't know. So the new injury, what happened was, so I ruptured it in the East Coast, and when you tear your Achilles, there's a 14-day window. You got to get it repaired, because if you go outside that window, things start to become much more difficult to reattach, and they don't want to. Your recovery becomes very potentially difficult. So I already had a flight on like a Thursday. I think I tore it on a Tuesday or a Monday. And the thing is, when you tear it, you got to find your doctor. You got to get a physical. You got to get an MRI, and you got to get on a surgical schedule. So you got to do all those things. And I couldn't find the guy who had done my left one, who was like a mad scientist who fixed it, like an incredibly bad situation. So I went with this guy, and he just did it wrong. And so it took me a year of healing, because you have to wait a year basically to see, like, and I kept saying to my family, to the PT people, I'm like, something's wrong. And they're like, no, it's in your head. You know, it's in your head. I'm like, it's not in my head. My foot is loose. So I went and saw 3 doctors, 3 specialists who all they do is Achilles.
Yeah.
2 of them said, yeah, it's loose, but listen. One of them's like, it's called a revision surgery is what one of them called it at UCLA. And he's like, going back in there is very difficult, and I wouldn't recommend it. I would try and PT it. The second guy goes, I can tell, he was cool. He was just like, I can tell you're a physically fit dude. If you have to go through this again, you're gonna lose your mind. Oh. And I was like, okay. I took his, and he's like, had me try and walk on my toes up and down the hallway, and I couldn't, because I can't get my heel off the ground. Yeah. So and the third guy in Pasadena was like, yeah, it's too long. Unfortunately, it's surgical error, and your Achilles is stretched, and there's nothing you can do on the planet to regain the tensile strength except go in there and cut a chunk out, and reattach, and start the whole the healing process over. So I was like, I have to do it. I have to have the second surgery, and I did it. And he came in after
you knew your body.
I wanted to be able to like push off. I wanted to be able to, like, because your people don't understand. Your Achilles goes from like the bottom of your foot all the way up your calf, back of your thigh, up your butt, and like it attaches in your like lower back. It's a very important tendon. Yeah. And so the guy comes in, and after I was like awake a little bit, and he's like, damn, dude, it was so far off. He's like, I took out that much.
Wow. Oh my God.
And I was like, what? And then anyway, so I was kind of fine.
It was holding up about 1.5 inches.
Yeah, about 1.25 inches of Achilles.
1.25 inches, okay.
It was that far off. And, you know, my body never physically recovered in the first one. Like, even because when you're doing PT on your foot, you have to spend like an hour and a half a day, and that's not doing anything else for your body. So your whole body's atrophying, and also for the first 6 weeks, you're pinned to the couch, no weight at all, and you have to be really careful, because if you slip and you put pressure on the ball of your foot, it'll rip right open. So like even when you brush your teeth, they're like, you can tap your foot down, but you cannot like put pressure on it. You can't even carry a cup of coffee, like even with a lid on it. Like you feel like such a useless piece of whatever. And my life leading up to this moment is, I trail run, I surf, I go to the ocean, I go to yoga, I lift weights, I do tons of stuff. I'm always
You're an
active.
athlete, yeah.
And so I go from all of that to pinned to the couch in August, and like perfect summertime. And buddies of mine are sending me videos of like, we had like a swell that lasted for like 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, I'm just dying. I'm like, stop sending me these videos, dude. Please, I'm begging you. And I kind of got through that one mentally okay. But then after the second one, I started going dark. And, I think when your body is used to getting endorphins from and being in sunlight and being in nature, like that's my thing. Like that's my jam. That's what keeps me mentally like strong, and I keep fit and happy.
Yeah.
And when you strip that away for now, let's say like a year and a half of none of that, you take all the way. And I can't work as an actor. There's basically nothing I could do.
So
I tried writing for
away.
a while. What's that?
Everything was ripped away.
Yeah, everything. And I was productive for a while on the first one. I was reading and I was learning and I was doing this, but then after a while it tapered off, and I started to like lose my sense of like, I was like, this is not good. And then second surgery, and then I stayed okay for a little while, and then I just found myself just in a really dark place, just depressed, and like.
Well, how did you climb out?
So the climb out was very interesting. I mean, this took a long time, because I was in that state, and I've never been a depressed guy. I've always been the guy who's like kind of a little bit crazy fun, like not crazy like oh my god, but more like that's awesome. Like that guy's crazy fun, like dancing with my dog, or like dancing with my daughter on the table, and there, life is good always. And so when this hit me, and the scariest part was I knew it was happening. All my friends knew it. My family knew it, because I was like kind of like a zombie. And for me, I was like, I was scared to death that I would never be able to find my way back to who I was,
Wow.
And that's scary.
Yeah, no, I know. It's incredibly difficult, especially with your wife and daughter there too.
But anyway, so I got through it. It took like probably like almost 3 years. No, but it took about 2 years. I started coming out of it like in March of this year. We got a cold plunge in a sauna at our house, and I started cold plunging, and I was like, and I became like obsessive about it. Like I would go in like 41 degrees, and I would stay in for like 10 minutes.
Wow.
And like really just shock my system, and then I would go in sauna and contrast therapy, and I'd do it like 3 times a day. And all of a sudden I noticed like a spark inside me start to like grow. And then we always go out to Malibu in the summer, because my daughter starts the junior lifeguard program. And we ended up moving into a house instead of a guest house. And this house it's just very simple, but it's smaller, and our family was more connected, but a big backyard with a lot of sunlight. And I was like, oh no, even my wife was like, we have to get a cold plunge in the sauna like as fast as we can. And we knew some people, and we got one like set up almost within a week.
Wow.
Because I was like, I was literally going to drive back to our house every day just because I was like, I knew something was working. And I also, at the same time, like I listened to a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of smart people like Andrew Huberman. And is that how you say his last name?
Huberman?
Huberman. Yeah, sorry, dude. But you're brilliant.
I don't know.
Brilliant. And a lot of guys like that who, there's a lot of biohacks and they work. Like, so, and even though I don't love social media, we have to use it as actors. We have to use it.
Oh yeah,
it's a whole thing. But in social media, there was actually like clips. There's reels of all these smart guys, and if you start watching or liking the smart guys, you get more feeds.
The algorithm gets you.
So I'm starting to get all this information, and then you go listen to their podcast or find the more detailed information.
There you go.
So I just started stacking these little things. So I like contrast therapy every day, no matter what. At least once a day, and then I would sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. Change, like I used to eat sugar now and then because I would have it lying around the house. My daughter would eat ice cream, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna have some ice cream too." And I cut out sugar completely, except for like in our smoothies now. Like Huberman said, like staring at sunrise. I would get up, and also during that dark period, could not get out of bed. I was like just sleeping, and everything was a chore, and there was like zero motivation, and also because I was isolated. You know, you're by yourself.
Oh yeah.
There's no community.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we're back out in Malibu, and I'm around community again, and so I just start, and all of a sudden I find myself like doing what I really wanted to do. Is like I always wanted to be the guy who got up at like 4 a.m, got stuff done, and charged the whole day. And all of a sudden that started happening. And I would take my dog down to the beach every morning in the summer because I didn't have to drive my daughter to school. And I saw more sunrises this summer than I have in my entire life. Probably 50.
That's amazing.
And you're allowed to, like, you can stare at the sun for like 5 minutes. And it actually has a really positive physiological effect on your body. And this stuff works, man.
Well, you did all the right things, by the way, if I can just say.
Yeah.
Social contact, being
you
in
probably
nature.
know all this stuff,
no,
right?
I want to point out, like, you did all the right things. Cold plunge is actually really good. It does shock the system. It decreases inflammation, which does also help with depression. And then it also helps because the shock to the system kind of resets the brain in a particular way. So that was really a great thing to do. And getting out down to the beach, I beg people who are depressed, get in nature. You go to the beach. I say go to the shoreline or go into the mountains, get under trees, the green therapy. So you're doing the right things and watching sunrise. It's like a welcoming of the morning. I mean, how wonderful that is. And having your dog, I can just imagine the magic. That was an absolutely wonderful thing that you did.
And the weirdest thing is that I thought when this happened and when I was in the darkest part of it, I thought my life was over. I really thought this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
Wow.
But when I came out of it, because I kind of came out of it on my own, and I went back to things I knew, like also walking barefoot, like grounding. There's so many like little things you can do, but nobody tells you this. The psychiatrist that I was seeing was like, try this, try that, and nothing worked.
It wasn't that kind of stuff?
No.
Oh.
None of that medication. Like I know that worked for some people, but it didn't work for me. It made me worse. Mm-hmm. So I got off everything. I got off it safely, and I said, thank you for your service, and bye, please. But people don't get the knowledge that there is healing outside your door. Mm-hmm. Like if you take off your shoes and go walk around barefoot, go sit under a tree, go watch the sunrise.
People.
Be around community.
Be around people you love.
Yep.
Yes.
Plant. We have a bunch of raised.
Get your hands in dirt and
we planted all our like raised beds. We grow everything.
This is a passion of Brian's, who's
Oh,
wants
really?
to
It's
start
very
gardens.
therapeutic.
It is.
That's, I'm like, if you're doing all the therapeutic work, literally,
Yeah.
with everything you've been doing.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
And it's
insane.
weird. Like,
Surfing as well.
Oh,
is
yeah.
like one of the most beautiful things I feel like people can do.
Yeah.
Just being on the board, sitting on the water, not even on the wave, just sitting
exactly.
there.
And I would do these. I would also do these long ocean swims, and I would kind of do them. You know the beach, so like you can either swim along the beach, which a lot of people do parallel because it's a little safer. But I like there used to be a buoy, and it's kind of moving, but it was pretty far out, almost a half mile. But you're kind of getting into potentially where sharks like to travel up and down that corridor.
Yeah.
But I liked the idea of being in their world, and that motivated me. And people even like seasoned dudes who surf there forever, like Chokachi, you're fucking crazy, dude. Like, why are you going that direction when you can swim along the shore? I'm like, I like that feeling of being in their world and knowing that I potentially, not that I'm going to die, but I hope to see one, and I hope it's a cool encounter. I hope it just is like, wow, there you go, bye. But anyway, just being in the ocean and getting up early and breath work.
The nutrition,
and stretching and exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Like I
Exercise
during that,
everything.
yeah, I stopped even exercising during that period. I just gave up on it. But now I do all those things, and I've come out of this a stronger, like a higher version of myself than before the injury.
I believe it. I didn't know you before, but you really, the feeling from you, I don't know how this can be related through a podcast, but you have a very positive vibe, like a very positive energy.
That
cool. I could see through the email. I mean, of all goony things.
Yeah.
That I was really, thrilled to have you on, and to find out you've been through all of this was very telling. We really, unfortunately, have to wrap, but I wanted to just touch on your charities because they're so important, and one of them is so near and dear to my heart, which is the Surfrider Foundation.
That's amazing.
Because I grew up on the beach, and we used to do beach cleanup all the time. So it was always a big deal.
That's so cool, dude. Are you still involved?
No, I'm not at all involved, but I was glad to see you.
Well, I'm gonna start getting you involved.
Okay.
We just did. My daughter goes to school, and they have to do part of the thing is community service, and so we just did a beach cleanup at Santa Monica Pier.
Oh, good.
But I became kind of an ambassador for them, and the way I was introduced was, it was like one of my first episodes on Baywatch was. It was about water quality testing.
Yeah.
And
I was telling him
we were
used to
talking
test
Oh,
about
really?
water,
Yeah.
Back when I was in elementary school, it was a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. and so there was a benefit at the end of the episode for the for the Surfrider Foundation that the Beach Boys were playing, and we had the Beach Boys. They played, and it benefited Surfrider. And I met them that day, and just stayed involved with them.
Ever since.
Yeah, ever since, and so much so that. Years later, they asked me, "Would you go to?" We were in New York, living in New York City at the time, and they're like, "Would you go down to DC and kind of testify on the importance of water quality testing?" And I was like, "Absolutely!" So I went down with them and a couple of their legal and then their really scientific people, just to say, because it's a line item in every administration that they want to cut, because it seems like it's just who needs water quality testing?
Yeah, I know.
But people who live in near the ocean,
do.
Yeah, you want to know. But so Surfrider Foundation is an awesome one, because you can actually go it's tangible. You can go help. It's not just send us money.
Yeah.
And the other one is Best Friends Animal Society. They are an amazing animal rescue, animal rehabilitation. They're just incredible. They have a facility out in Kanab, Utah, where they rehabilitate dogs. They took all Michael Vick's pit bulls.
Oh, wow.
I think there were 24, and I think they out of 24, it was either 21 or 22. They rehabilitated and placed in homes. And that's
wow.
That's dogs that were fighting dogs.
Wow.
So these people are amazing. It's what they're doing. So it's Best Friends Animal Society, and it's like a tourist. They have like 3,000 acres, and they have like tours. They have a beautiful hotel and a restaurant. It's Francis and Silva Batista who kind of are the founders, and I'm actively and heavily involved with them.
Wow, what a trip.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. It is unfortunate we need to stop, David,
man.
because
You just keep going, dude.
no, I could talk to you all day. But we're going to put those charities in our show notes,
thank you.
and
They'll appreciate it.
yeah, they sound like extremely valuable. I wanted to say that wraps up the show for today. Thank you, David Chokachi.
Thank you.
Please remember to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, go to the YouTube page, youtube.com/Dr. Greg. For David Chokachi, you can go to davidchokachi.com. It's David, CHOKACHI.com. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, and also probably the Instagram handle's better.
Instagram, yes.
It's at the real David Chokachi.
At the real David Chokachi, yes.
Yeah.
Which your Instagram is wonderful. I mean, really gives you a side of really understand what movies are like or what it's like.
Yeah,
So.
it's fun. I mean, because I always when I was growing up, you never got to see how movies were made.
You never do.
And I always was obsessed with I just want to see how they do it,
Yeah.
So I'm like, for someone who can't afford to buy the movie and see like the bonus content, they could see like wow, man, look at those. That's how they make the rain machine go. Like that's it.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting.
Right?
Like all of a sudden the rain machine turns off.
Yeah.
And you guys are like, oh, we're freezing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, any last words, Brian?
No, I just have a lot of I still want to know more. And
We're going to
more,
hit you up for more questions.
You're
Well,
gonna
I'll come back.
Okay, good.
'Cause I love you. You guys are on the same frequency as me. I can tell, and I would love to. I love to. It's a really great show, and you're sending a great message,
Well, thank
which
you.
I think is really important. And I feel like this message really needs to be heard because our country's in a weird state, and people are in a very strange state of like how they are behaving, and
I agree. Yeah.
I think they need to reset and kind of go back to nature. And-
Reset, go back to nature, and come back together. And
Yeah.
we all need to,
And-
as Goonies it is, hold hands.
Seriously, love each other.
Like
and,
love each other.
and be
Yes.
kind to each other because it's not very peaceful out there right now.
No, I know. Well, thank you for help making it a little more peaceful.
I'm trying.
If you have any questions or topic, hit me up on the socials at Ask Dr. Greg. This is Dr. Greg, Brian, and David Chokachi
Thank you.
saying be present, be flexible, and be kind.